Thank you so much for staying with us. Now let's talk about malaria. Malaria has for decades been one of Nigeria's most persistent public health challenges. For instance, you wouldn't believe this if I told you that the malaria control program in Nigeria started in 1948. Far back as 1948, where they called it the National Malaria Service. And efforts have been made over the years to get to that point. Even in 1986, there was a National Malaria Control Program. 1986, that's how many years ago now?
That's
quite some length of time. Okay, so the World Health Organization says that Nigeria recorded more than 68 million clinical malaria cases and around 184,000 of such resulted in deaths in 2023 alone. But if we bring it to Lagos State, you'll find out that the state has embarked on quite a very, should I say, a different trajectory of getting it done, because over the past decade, the state has reduced malaria prevalence in the state from about 15% in 2010 to something in the region of 3.2% as an interim result, and now very close to the 1% threshold. The question I've been asking for years is, why is it taking us so long to eliminate these things? 1948 was before independence.
Yes.
And anyway, I'm not the one to answer that question. Dr. Abimbola Oshino is here with us. She is the manager, Lagos State Malaria Elimination Program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And she's here with the Deputy Managing Director of Society for Family Health in Nigeria, Dr. Jennifer Anyanti. Thanks for joining us this morning, madam.
Very much.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
So, madam, can I begin by asking the question this way? Why has it taken us so long? Since 1948, some people born in 1948 now are my great-grandparents. So why is it taking us so long? Why is it a difficult thing to do?
Well, malaria is not, many people just assume that when you talk about malaria, you're looking basically at the clinical diagnosis. So you get tested, or sometimes they don't even get tested. They just take the medications and then they feel better and assume that it is malaria. But malaria goes beyond that. It is multifactorial, multidimensional. Malaria is an economic problem. It's not just a health problem. So I'll put it this way. If you can imagine a pyramid, and then you invert it, the tip at the bottom is where diagnosis and treatment come in. Most of the work is actually with the prevention. And many of us are actually breeding mosquitoes without realizing we are in our sphere of influence, for instance, in our homes. Malaria is not just about you and I, it goes beyond that. You can have breeding sites, and breeding sites would encourage the growth of mosquitoes. And you can have those things at home. You can have it around you. You can have it places of work without realizing it. The activities that can actually encourage breeding sites without you realizing it. So with all of that happening, you have a situation where over the years it has been on. And then over time, we discover that the prevalence isn't going down. Malaria cases are still increasing, despite the fact that we're getting treated. So obviously our prevention aspect isn't working. We're not doing the right thing, or we're not in any way tackling it as we should. So definitely, malaria is not just about the disease alone. It goes beyond that. We're looking at the environment. We're looking at also the mosquitoes, the characteristics of the mosquitoes, before I even talk about the human aspect. So it's multi-dimensional, multifactorial.
Well, Dr. Anyanti, my question is going to be a little bit funny. Maybe more in the environment angle than in the health angle. There are those who have told us that every insect created by God, everything created by God is serving a purpose in the ecosystem. So my question to you is, does elimination of malaria mean elimination of mosquitoes?
I think that's an important question, really, and a funny one often, because it's actually human beings that infect the mosquitoes, interestingly. And so you've got countries like the United States, Iceland, other countries in the global north. They actually have mosquitoes, but they don't have malaria. And the reason for that, of course, is because you have to have a human host with Plasmodium in it, and then the mosquitoes come and bite one person, the female Anopheles mosquito comes and bites the person, and then they actually, use it to mature their eggs, and then they go and bite another person, and then they infect that person with the Plasmodium. So you don't necessarily have to eradicate all the mosquitoes if you can get rid of the of course, but you can't eradicate malaria without dealing with that problem, which is the mosquitoes. And so other countries, they've actually used the environmental factor to deal with malaria. And the United States, for example, in the 40s, you were talking about the 40s just now, they were able to use vector control. So again, deal with all the mosquitoes at a time. And then, of course, everybody was then treated for malaria. And then there was no human host to infect the mosquitoes again. So there are still mosquitoes all over. Like you said, God created every animal for a reason, but it doesn't mean we should leave them to keep infecting. Moving from person to person. And so, just like Dr. Shino said, I think the behavioral factors and the environmental factors are just as critical as the treatment factors when it comes to addressing malaria.
Okay, two things you have said that I find interesting. One, you said that we are the ones that are infecting the mosquitoes. I won't forget that one, so I will stop infecting my mosquitoes. The second thing you said is that it is the females. Female. Anyway, let me come to you. The question first thing that I was saying between Jackie and I earlier is that why pre-elimination? And I'm just plunging. It's taking too long already. Yeah. And what's also interesting about malaria is any feeling, any small temperature at least
just say go and do malaria
it's test. Malaria. So take us through, give us an understanding.
Okay. Why pre-elimination? Before we dabble into even eradication, most times we start with control. You want to control the disease, and then gradually it becomes pre-elimination. You watch out for a bit to see whether the values are going down before it becomes elimination in that region. And when you talk of eradication, it means that it has been eliminated throughout the world. If you think about smallpox, for instance, it's eradicated. But you can't talk of eradication without having to go through going through elimination first. So malaria is actually overdiagnosed because everybody assumed that once you have a fever, then it is malaria. And it's not so. The only way you can actually determine whether you do have malaria or not is if you get tested. And there are two types of tests that you do, either using the malaria rapid diagnostic test kits or you do microscopy. And that will tell you whether it is malaria or not. What we discovered in the States is that many people that do claim they have malaria, most times it's something else. It could be a viral infection. That could mean, and the beauty about viruses is it takes its course. So even if you start taking anti-malaria, over time you'll still get better. But then the viruses they have a lifespan of 5 to 7 days, and then they go by themselves. The only thing you need actually is supporting your immune system. So you increase your vitamin intake, you do a bit of resting and all of that, paracetamols and all of that. So many people assume that once you have a fever equates to having malaria, but it's not. Some others, it's probably not even a viral, it could be a bacterial infection. And then they don't get better and they assume that the medication isn't working. Yeah. But it's not as though the medication isn't working. The medication works, but you're using the wrong medication for the disease, for the wrong disease. So that is why it is important to test before you do any form of treatment.
Right. And Dr. Ayonte, if I can bring you in here, I think part of what Dr. Shinawa was saying is that, when you do that testing, we heard that malaria is so endemic where we are that there will always be that plus, or plus, as the case may be, depending on, how much it has really, gone deep into the system. So where do we begin to get from testing and from the diagnosis and the treatment when the plus signs are almost always there? So how do you now know that when it's not malaria and we should not be treating malaria? If I can...
I think that's really a very important point. And especially for a state like Lagos. And we're really being specific for Lagos because in the north of the country, there's still a lot of malaria. But in Lagos, malaria has dropped significantly. A lot of the work that's being done has been addressing either whether it's addressing the vector treatments by the ministry, of course represented here by Dr. Shinomo, and other private sector partners. There's been a lot of work done on malaria in Lagos. And so the prevalence in Lagos, like she said, is actually much lower than in other subnational units of the country. And so in Lagos, the way that we're trying to address this through the Impact Project with the ministry is that we are actually training a range of providers. So again, training people in the primary healthcare centers to be able to do malaria rapid diagnostic tests. We're also training in conjunction with Unilab, with the Andy Center of Excellence. We're training microscopists because the problem that we're finding out is that actually many of the microscopy tests that are saying 1+, 2+, 3+ are not actually quite correct. And so, of course, these are healthcare workers who can be trained to actually see whether there are malaria parasites in the blood film that they are looking at. And so we're taking a lot of, with the Ministry of Health, we're doing a lot of training around, improving the skills of those who actually carry out microscopy, both in the public and in the private sector. The other issue is that many of our providers, people are a bit used to saying, oh, it's malaria because somebody has a fever, isn't feeling well. It's easy to say it's malaria. People also want it to be malaria so that you don't have to worry whether it's a bigger problem like HIV or typhoid or any of these bacterial infections. And so people don't want to believe when you say the malaria RDT is negative, people tend to want to say, no, okay, if you feel it's negative, what else is it? And so we're actually working with the ministry now to develop a protocol around this for health workers, both in the public and the private sector. Remember, Lagos has a very vibrant private health sector. And so working with them to look at, okay, first of all, there's a protocol. Somebody comes with a fever, do an RDT, whether it's in public or private sector. If it's negative, what do you do next? And so supporting the health system itself to be able to take the decisions around what to do when a test is negative. Because that's what the health worker really needs is guidance and support. Again, like I said, training the microscopists so that they don't, somebody's come with a negative RDT and then the microscopist says it's 1+. Then it kind of negates the whole fact that these MRDTs are actually determining whether people do have malaria or not. And one thing we're also trying to do is to scale this up, not just to the formal private sector, such as hospitals, clinics in the private sector, but we're also including community pharmacists and patent and proprietary medicine vendors, where a lot of people go for their first point of call when they are not feeling well. And, it's there, people just say, give me malaria medicine. But if those people are able to say, yes, let me do a test for you first, and then providing them with the protocol. If the test is negative, we've got to refer you to the primary healthcare center that's closest to you so that they could find out exactly what else could be wrong with you. Right. And we're also encouraging manufacturers to also encourage test and treat. A lot of the adverts that are being done says, you're not feeling well, go and buy this anti-malarial, and then if you don't feel better after 2 days, then go and see your doctor. It should be the other way around. First of all, do a test, and then if you are positive, then you take the anti-malarial.
Yeah, so that means a lot of the malaria adverts campaigns going on should be rewritten.
Yes.
To put that. But you said something earlier, very quickly, about environment, or was it Dr. Ayanti that said it about elimination in other countries where they eliminated the mosquitoes responsible for that. And which means it's an environmental problem. I don't see in places where maybe the government or is saying that, oh, we need to fumigate maybe people's environment, like in people's estates, clearance of gutters, fumigating, just to eliminate some of those mosquitoes. I don't see much of those going on. So what are we doing for pre-elimination? Where does that come in? Such that it's not just about hospitals and, you know, telling people that this is what we're doing, but what about the environment factors? But what are we doing?
Environmental factors, it's not just the government activity, it's individual activity.
I'm talking about awareness and all that.
Awareness creation, yes. We're doing a lot of awareness creation with regards to that. A lot of sensitization, and then behavioral change as well. Because, like I mentioned, I said sometimes you can be breeding mosquitoes without realizing it. For instance, we have containers, individuals or homes that do not have running water, do not have possible water. They have containers. Those containers are actually breeding sites. Once you've gotten rid of breeding sites, then there's no way the mosquitoes can continue to survive or thrive, and then they end up, you know, getting eliminated. So you've dealt with the breeding sites. You have those containers. The important thing is just cover. So they don't in any way have somewhere to lay their eggs. When we're able to do that, you have done your own aspect. Your gutters in front of your homes can have actually, they're not running, or they've been rubbish, or should I say they become dump sites. Those are you have stagnant waters. So those are the things that would encourage the breeding of mosquitoes. Try and get rid of, ensure that the gutters flow across. If you are able to do it, and your neighbor is able to do it, it's not just one person doing it, it's everybody coming along, because you can do, and then your next door neighbor isn't doing anything, it will still eventually affect you one way or the other. Even within your premises, you can have receptacles that store water, or that collect water. For instance, pots and pans. People throw pots and pans around homes. You have flower pots. You could also even have some flowers that their leaves are so white that they have water collection. Those are the things that we can actually remove from our environment. So a lot of awareness creation, a lot of sensitization in that regard. And we also have to change our behaviors. Many of us do not in any way use the proper refuse means and ways of collecting refuse. We tend to throw refuse left, right, and center. For instance, this rainy season, we have a lot of floods. When you have stagnant water, you have, like I mentioned, you are more or less causing breeding sites to be available. So when we tend to put our rubbish on the roads, we assume it's not my own, or it's not the rubbish I'm putting now that is going to cause or eliminate. I do, you do, everybody else does. Eventually, you would have something that is blocking the drains, and then you have flooding. And it's not just about the roads alone. You also have a lot of insects breeding one way or the other. So we all have a lot of things to do. We all have our parts to play. Not just the government really, but individuals, and we need to change our behavior.
I think that speaks to a lot as to, you know, the education that government needs to bring to the people, because it shouldn't have, I still maintain it shouldn't have taken us this long, but hey, it has. We can only wish you the best, and we're here to support in every way we can.
Yeah,
Dr. Abimbola Oshino, Manager, Lagos State Malaria Elimination Program, and Dr. Jennifer Anyanti, Deputy Managing Director, Society for Family Health, SFH in Nigeria. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Good. Now, one question that I want to ask is whether or not malaria elimination, among other things, is possible through AI. We'll find out when we return from this conversation. You stay with us. Hey!